The Chiefs have their eyes on these free agents. We have our full free agent watch list, and we're going to talk about it. Good morning, Chiefs Kingdom. It's a beautiful Monday morning, March the 3rd. Let's go, baby. The Combine just took place, Mike. Isn't that wild? And we got free agency coming up. It's rolling.
I know, man. Combine this weekend, it was wild. I didn't really watch all of it because, like I told you, what is that noise? Did I just get hit with the heavens opened up?
Yeah,
I talked about the Combine. But yeah, I didn't want to watch the Combine. Kind of wanted to see the players after I looked into them, got my initial rankings because I didn't want to be influenced or whatever. So I'm excited to get into that. But I do know some news that happened. I know that the old fella that said he's going to beat Xavier Worthy's 40 time.
What a
crap
flop.
the bed, huh? Hey,
what a flop.
Seen that one coming. I said, hey, cue up the 4-4.
You did. I really didn't think he would run that bad, but good grief. And that's not bad, by the way. But when you're sitting here talking about 4-1s, that's not very good.
Don't bring up 4-1 noise when you can't get a 4-4 going.
Look, if you're not Bo Jackson, don't talk about running a 4-1. Okay?
Yeah, that's what I say. But, Steve, we got some free agent stuff to get to. We're going to talk about that. Appreciate everybody being here. It's Monday morning. Monday suck it. I know it does. It just sucks. But you know what? We're a day closer to Friday.
Yeah, make the best of it. And why not do that watching All Chiefed Up? Do us a favor, hit that like button for us. Get this out to a little bit more people. And Mike, let's go ahead and talk about our free agency list. Every year we make a free agency list of guys that we think the Chiefs are actually going to look at during free agency. So this isn't necessarily our favorite players or anything like that, but it is guys that we think the Chiefs may take a look at.
Hey, surprise, surprise, you're going to see a lot of Chiefs players on this list because I don't think Brett Veach, this is the year he's going to go out and spend a big bunch of money. I don't think he's got money to spend, Steve. And the first one we'll get to on this list is a positional need that everybody knows that we need to address. That's the left tackle. We talked about guys like Cam Robinson. We talked about Alaric Jackson. He signed with the Rams, okay?
Yeah.
You weren't going to get him. We looked at Cam Robinson. We didn't really like what Cam Robinson offered, to be honest.
Right.
We felt that if you're going to address the left tackle position, and that is probably the most important this offseason with the Chiefs, you're going to have to do it in the draft. And look, I don't know if you want to do it with the draft and just go back and just put them right back in like we did with Kingsley last year. I think that's crazy. So I think, number one, you got to start. I think DJ Humphries. I think this is where you start, and I think he's the one that you probably need to look at to get a full offseason in. He's been here for just a little bit, Steve. About half a season, somewhere in that ballpark. He's got good size. Just everything about him screams that he could probably do the job just as good or better than any kind of draft pick you're getting unless you get a top 10 pick. And more than likely, he could probably be better than a top 10 pick in their rookie season. So I feel like if the Chiefs are going to address this now, this may be the best guy to do it.
I think it's the smartest move, and I think it is a very Brett Veachy move to go ahead and sign DJ Humphries, keep him playing the left tackle position all through the offseason, get the whole offseason in, get his feet back under him. He'll end up starting over there, and I think they go ahead and they hit on one in the draft too. I think they go ahead and draft a left tackle. They get somebody else over there that can get behind this guy and try to find a long-term answer at left tackle. But I do think it's the cheapest, smartest, and the most Brett Veachy move just to stick with DJ Humphrey. So I fully expect to see that. If they do go out and grab another guy, whether it be a free agent or a trade or something like that, it wouldn't completely blow me away, but I do think this is the most likely scenario.
Right. I just don't think we're going to be able to get a guy like Ronnie Stanley. I think he's a little too older. He's too old for what we probably want to do. And again, I just don't think Cam Robinson was all that great. What did he have last year, Steve? It's something like he gave up 55 pressures and 7 sacks or something last year. And he's
Right.
I just don't feel like the money is probably worth it. And a lot of people are a little concerned about Humphries too, though, Steve.
Of course they are. He's coming off the injury, and he didn't look that great last year when he did have his opportunities. I mean, you can look at the pass blocking scores in these 2 games here.
He had a 10.
10's a little scary.
Steve,
But
do you think you could get a 10 in a game at a pass block score? If you got to go 25 pass blocking reps, could you score 10?
I would like to think I could get to a 10.
I don't think you could. I think you
I would
could
do
like
something to make sure I got the 10.
you'd be like a negative 10.
If I had to do like some Happy Gilmore dirty type stuff, like take my skate off and stab somebody, like I would do whatever I had to do to get a 10.
Right. Well, look,
That-
he had 69 pass block reps last year, and you could see it wasn't that good. And again, he was coming off the couch. He was coming off of a surgery, a big time surgery. He ended up having 11 pressures, 5 hurries, 3 hits, 3 sacks allowed in just 69 pass block reps. And his efficiency grade overall was only an 89. That was pretty weak. Week 14 and 18.
Weak.
But the thing is, and look, this is him over his career. And look how bad this year was. And I mean, it's an outlier.
Yeah.
So if you go back and look, 2022, it's a Pro Bowl year at an 80. He had 2020 a 79.9. It's basically an 80. 2019, he was a 76.3. He's took over 4,000 pass block reps his entire career. He's got less penalties in his entire career than Jawan Taylor had last season, 56. 33 sacks, 31 hits, 167 pressures, and 231 pressures total in, seriously, his entire career. So I think if you're going to go with a left tackle this year, a nice stopgap, because I don't believe anybody out there right now is the solution long term.
They're not. And Mike, a lot of people were talking about Cam Robinson, a lot of people in our chat. People like Ronnie Stanley, people like other options, but let's be honest here. I think that's just because they've been watching poor left tackle play, so anything looks intriguing.
Yeah,
But
I just don't
you have
think
to-
Ronnie Stanley's going to leave Baltimore, to be honest.
Well, I also think you have to be have to be smart about the situation. You can't just go off your feelings and be like, man, we suck so bad at left tackle. Let's just grab anybody we can.
Right.
I don't think that's the solution either. I think, like you said, the stopgap with DJ Humphries might be the smart move.
Right, and we'll get into more left tackles when we start talking about our draft rankings. But just to throw a few names out there, if you want to go back and watch some film or some things to keep an eye on, you've got guys like Armand Membu from Missouri. That's a left tackle. That's probably a first-round talent. You got Kevin Banks Jr. from Texas, Will Campbell, LSU, Josh Connerly, Oregon, Josh Simmons, who's also coming off an injury out of Ohio State. You got Ozzie Trapilo from Boston College, I believe, and then Anthony Belton from NC State. Wyatt Milam from West Virginia, Emory Jones, LSU, Ariante Ursery from Minnesota. You got plenty of names out of there. I think the Chiefs actually had an interview with Charles Grant from William and Mary already. So there's a few names out there, and these guys, we're gonna dive into more of those names, watch some film, see who fits the Chiefs, and rank those. But in the meantime, those are some names that you could see pop up in the draft process for the Chiefs, Steve. So it's not like DJ Humphries is just by himself. And then not to mention, you've still got Wanye. You've still got Kingsley developing. You even got guys in there last year. The cat that they brought in, unrestricted free agent or undrafted free agent, rather. The kid from Louisville. I forget his name.
Ethan Driscoll.
Ethan Driscoll. He started, or didn't start, but he had an appearance in a game or two last year where he got to come up and just kind of be a backup, I guess. But I think there's people there that the Chiefs can work with. I just don't think they're starting from completely as bottom of the barrel as we think they are.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch and see what they decide to do in the draft and what they're going to do with their young guys there, because they've had a big problem with developing these guys. They have been investing in the offensive line. I mean, we talked about it. They've been drafting guys ever since back with Lucas Niang. They've been trying to find somebody. So I mean, eventually they've got to get a guy developed and ready to go over there. But yeah, I think this is the most likely scenario.
Right. So number one on our list was DJ Humphries. We think that's got to be where they go. Steve, number two may surprise some people. And honestly, I don't know if Brett Veach can afford the guy, but he's getting a little up there in his career. He's not old by any means. He adds a different kind of element to a room that needs it. We just heard some news that the Chiefs are not planning on re-signing back or extending Isaiah Pacheco just now. They want to see what happens. So with Kareem Hunt on him 1 year, Samaje Perine was on him 1 year. You had Carson Still. The running back room. I think a lot of people think the running back room needs to be addressed, and we think that they may do that in the draft. Maybe once, maybe twice. Who knows? May look at an undrafted. But there's another guy out there. We like Aaron Jones. 5'9", 208, still runs a 4.5. He's very productive. Just last year, Steve, he was the 17th running back overall with an overall grade of a 75.8 per PFF. He had a 75 receiving grade, basically, which was 8th out of all halfbacks. So he can catch the ball. He kind of gives you that Jerick McKinnon role late in his career. He's got a nose for just picking up yards and getting that first down. 22nd out of 47 halfbacks in rushing grade. He was almost to a 76. He had 255 carries last year for 1,138 yards. Big time numbers. 5 touchdowns. He averaged 4.5 a carry. And that's not even talking about his receiving stuff yet, Steve. I'll bring those up in just a second. But Aaron Jones, you think that's a guy that Brett Veach could look at, that he could add to this room, and we could pair him with Pacheco, Carson Steele, and maybe a few other guys, depending on what we want to do? Do you think that upgrades a little bit? Because last year we were talking about, hey, if you could afford it, Alvin Kamara would have been a nice little piece. Aaron Jones kind of plays like Kamara in a way.
Yeah, he's like the dollar store version of Kamara, right? Not say that he's bad at all, but he's not exactly Alvin Kamara, but he is good, and they have had reports out that the Chiefs are going to be looking for a veteran running back. I thought that was a little odd, considering who they have. I think maybe going back with Kareem Hunt would probably be thing, and that's something we're going to talk about in a minute. But I mean, Aaron Jones, this is a good option. We talked about him last season when he was a free agent. We thought that he would be a good fit. And you mentioned that Jerick McKinnon role, and I feel like that just calling Aaron Jones someone that can do the Jerick McKinnon role is kind of selling the guy short, because he's a very, very good player. He offers a lot. He is getting up there in age a little bit, though, but I do like him. It does look like that he dipped the bottom half of his face in a bowl of bleach and sat there for a while, and that's a little weird. But, I mean, he's pretty good, man. I think it's a good option for the Chiefs.
Yeah, well, he just turned 30, so he'll be somewhere around 30, 31. This was about the time they got Jerick McKinnon in here. I think if he wants to extend his career, he goes to the receiving part, and he could still do the other part as well. If you look back here, this is his receiving stuff. All the way back through Green Bay in 2017, the dude's got 351 receptions for 2,700 yards and 21 touchdowns, just receiving. If you look over there to the right, his offensive scores are always in the green, which is always the top tier. His receiving grades, the worst he had was 2023 in Green Bay, which that offense was kind of struggling then. It just didn't look right last year, or the year before, rather, when they got rid of him. And then all the way back to his rookie season at 58.6. But still, Steve, I think these are very impressive. I think he gives you maybe the McKinnon role a little bit, and he's a little more dynamic than a guy like Samaje Perine in a way. Now, look, Samaje Perine's good in his own right, and we'll also talk about him in a second. But I think Aaron Jones, for the price that you could maybe get him for right now, because he's not going to guarantee top dollar. He's a running back in the first place. Running back position is not very paid. Remember, we had a whole entire powwow over that about how they was all going to cry and get together and hold out collectively as a positional unit. Like, good grief. But anyway, yeah, I do believe Aaron Jones is a serviceable guy to look at and bring in and possibly add a little bit more dynamicness to that running back room.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he started off great last season. Like, he really was hot when he started last season. Kind of faded off at the end of the season. But I do think that Aaron Jones would be a great pickup if you pair him with a young running back room. And, I mean, that's kind of what the Chiefs have going on if you're talking about Isaiah Pacheco and Carson Steele. And then we'll see what else they do there.
Right. So that moves along. If you've got Aaron Jones, look, if you can't get Aaron Jones, what do? Maybe if you do get Aaron Jones, could you still do this? I think you got to look at bringing back Kareem Hunt for another 1-year deal. Possibly if you could get him for 2 years for cheap. But I think he did enough last year, Steve, that I think Kareem Hunt deserves to have another shot and a crack at it with the Chiefs here. I think he done well. I do believe that during the season when he was relied on as the bell cow there from weeks 3 through 9, he looked very, very good. And then when you got Pacheco back, and then they started utilizing the other guys a little bit more with Samaje Perine and different things, his production kind of fell off a little bit. And Andy started going away from him. But I felt like he was completely fine being that workhorse running back, and he actually held up very, very well doing that.
Absolutely. Before I get to my thoughts on Kareem Hunt, I do want to get to the chat for 1 second. Stoic Drill Sergeant gifted a membership down.
Let's go, baby.
Shout out. Stoic Drill Sergeant for that. I'm sure he got thanked in the chat. If he didn't, you're a slap nut. Thank him. And then also we have About Time, been a member for 11 months now. And he says, anniversary time, you slap nuts. let's freaking go about time. But yeah, man, Kareem Hunt, I would love to give him another crack at it. I think Kareem Hunt was done dirty in this Super Bowl. You have a guy that came in off the couch and whooped ass all year. And you get to the playoffs and you just don't use them the way that you should necessarily. And then you get to the Super Bowl, this guy don't have a ring. He left the Chiefs and he come back. He missed all three of those.
Right.
You know, this was his shot. And this was his redemption. And Andy Reid don't even let him run the damn ball.
No,
It was absolutely absurd to have a guy with that much fire in his belly about this game, and you didn't even utilize him. That's just wild to me. That's a coaching miss, and it sucks for Kareem Hunt. It probably really sucked to sit there and see that happen and just feel completely helpless because you weren't even given the ball. The running game altogether wasn't given a second thought. So it just kind of sucks, and I think that's something that they have to look at this year. Something Andy Reid's going to have to. I mean, I know he's been doing the same shit for 30 years now or whatever, but he's got to take a good, long, hard look in the mirror. And I think Kareem Hunt's a good one to have on the team, man. Maybe you can't run him as RB1. You can't just wear him out like they did mid-season when they didn't really have any other options before Pacheco came back. But he's definitely somebody that we saw last season that offers a lot. I mean, this kid can play. He fits into this offense better than just about any other running back we've ever seen. I mean, we saw that when he was young, and then we saw that when he came back, and just it's like he never left. He just fits so well into this offense, and he has good chemistry with the guys. And I think it's a no-brainer to get Kareem Hunt back because he's not going to be expensive. There's not going to be other teams barking up, that tree. I think it's just an easy one.
Right. So we're not saying that all these guys are going to be signed, but these are guys that we should look at. We think that Aaron Jones is somebody that they should look at. Kareem Hunt
don't look like him. You don't want to look like him.
Kareem Hunt, yeah, that's true. Samaje Perine another one here. Samaje Perine was not used as much as he should have been in the beginning, and then later at the end of the season, Steve, I thought they used Samaje Perine pretty decently well. I thought he'd done that McKinnon row. I know you can't stop laughing at his thumb head.
I don't know why.
Like, what are you laughing at?
Pete Ryan, he's so round, and then he's got the thickest beard I've ever seen in my life.
He looks like the guy that says, struggling with it.
He does kind of.
He kind of looks like him, man. But yeah, I think out of these guys, like, we're not saying to sign all three of these guys. Like, there's no way you can. You've got Carson Steele. I don't think they're giving up on, and you've got also
but these are guys they're looking at, right?
Isaiah Pacheco. These are guys that we would look at and we would probably consider. And again, Kareem Hunt and Perine, that's going to be your well cheaper option over Aaron Jones, by the way. So it's just how much you can spend or want to spend.
Well, I felt kind of the same about Samaje Perine as I did Kareem Hunt. Like, obviously, he didn't get that kind of work like Kareem Hunt got last season. But Samaje Perine also was underutilized. I do feel like when we did use him, he was very successful. We know what he's capable of. Hell, we saw it against us when he was with the Cincinnati Bengals. And then we saw him have some really clutch key plays with the Chiefs this last season. I think he can also be that Jerick McKinnon role. I think he was doing it quite well towards the end of the season. Pass protection, it can always be polished up. Doesn't matter how good you are, you can always get a little better at it. And I think we could say that about him. But I do like him as a pass catching back. I just do. I think Samaje Perine's that guy, and he can also run the ball, man. And he's quick and he's got a lot of power. And I like the kid. He's also a cheap option. I think it's a no-brainer as well. So I think these are definitely guys you look at.
Would you be more content to keep Pacheco, Carson Steele? Obviously, that's your two guys that are for sure right now. Would you be more content to sign back Kareem Hunt and Perine together as a package over Aaron Jones, or Aaron Jones without the other two?
That's a good question.
Because if you did Aaron Jones, you may have to look at the draft now.
I think you look at the draft regardless. I think there's some guys.
Yeah, I think they look at the draft too.
That they could get. I know a lot of people in chats, but talking about Jaden Blue,
out of Texas.
Yeah, and he said he wanted to play for the Chiefs, so I think that kind of fueled the fire a little bit. But I think that they are going to look in the draft. And like you said, you can't have 75 running backs on a team. They're only going to have 4 on the roster more than likely. So I don't know. That's a really good question, Mike. That's something I have to kind of look into a little bit more, I think, and think more about. Just off the top of my head, I think it might be smart to keep the combo and not go the Aaron Jones route because he might be a little bit more expensive. But at the same time, it would be nice to have something fresh in house.
Well, the reason I asked that is because the Chiefs want to go out and get a free agent that's got a little more
a veteran, yeah,
a veteran kind of guy. And they had those two veterans in P. Ryan and Kareem Hunt, but they're still wanting to go get another one. So I'm just saying, like, I don't feel like if you just bring those two back and call it a day, you didn't upgrade the room.
Right. I mean, I agree. It is what it is, man. But I think a lot of people, you kind of, it's kind of like a comfort thing, right? Like you're used to these guys. You're used to Kareem. Kareem Hunt felt so good to be back on the Chiefs, just for all fans, right? Like it was like, hey,
I would prefer Kareem Hunt over Samaje P. Ryan, not because I feel like he's probably more valuable at this point in his career, but just because I like Kareem Hunt.
I think he is, though. I think you saw that last season. I think Kareem Hunt has a lot to offer, especially in this offense.
Could Kareem Hunt shift to basically just a third down back, kind of like what you've seen out of P. Ryan, to extend his career?
I'm sure.
He catches the ball in the backfield very well.
He always has, but they didn't utilize it this year, now did they? And another thing is...
Because you had P. Ryan a lot, right?
Yeah, but they didn't really use him. They just didn't really pass the backs a lot this year, which was strange. There were several... the Super Bowl. Golden opportunity to hit some little screen passes.
You should have let the pass rush come up the field and just be too aggressive and work it against them. They didn't do that.
Probably wouldn't have worked anyway because they only had to rush 4 people. But either way, I think there were some times that they could have utilized that type of game, and they just haven't. Ever since Jerick McKinnon, they haven't really used that, which is pretty odd. But
I called that out, man. I thought that was something that we missed out of the offense this year. Big time.
For sure.
I think Aaron Jones gives that back to you. This is another reason I've got him high on the list.
Yeah. He gives it back to you in a different kind of way because I would go out on a limb. I'm not saying in pass protection and things like that, but I do think that he's a better player than Jerick McKinnon was. So I do think Aaron Jones is a step above.
I don't think anybody would look back at the careers of those two and not say Aaron Jones was the better player.
Right. Now, I know that Jerick McKinnon had some injuries early and stuff and kind of stifled his career, but he's just not an Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is a step up.
Okay, so we addressed the left tackle. We addressed the running back. Steve, are there any running backs in the draft you think the Chiefs may target? We named a few left tackles to watch. Anybody caught your eye with the running backs that you've seen so far? I know you mentioned, who was it, Jaden Blue?
Yeah, I haven't really dug into the running backs a whole lot, so I don't have anybody particular in mind. I do think it would blow people's mind, but I kind of think if Omarion Hampton from North Carolina is hanging around a lot lower than he should be, maybe in the second round, like something like that, which I highly doubt. But if he does drop, don't be surprised to see them take a look at a guy like that has that much talent. Because we've seen in previous drafts, sometimes the running backs can drop quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not getting drafted as high as they used to. But usually when there's a premier talent, like a Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs or somebody like that, they still go in the first round. And I think this year, that's obvious. There's an obvious one that's going to do that. But I think someone like
Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, I think that somebody like the guy from North Carolina could be one that could drop a little further than people expect. And then there's a hell of a lot of talent there. And if you know how Brett Veach is, he likes his value. So,
yeah, I'm with you there. I don't think they take another one at the end of the first round. I feel like
I don't
Clyde
think they would do
burns them a
first
little
round,
bit.
but I think if one's hanging around in the second round when they have an opportunity, or even if he's hanging around and Brett Veach thinks he's worth trading up a few picks for, that's not been out of the realm of possibility for Brett Veach to do that for players. Now, would he do it for a running back? I don't think so, but like I said, he likes value. So I mean, if it's there,
I could see if the Chiefs maybe wanted to get out of their first round pick and just acquire more draft picks, moving down to maybe the first 10 slots in the second round. I could see them maybe taking a running back there if a good one fell, such as what you said in Omarion Hampton.
I really think that if the Lions wouldn't have jumped on
it's a
Jahmyr
little
Gibbs,
rich.
I really think if the Lions wouldn't have jumped on Jahmyr Gibbs and he would have fell a little bit further, Brett Veach would have went after him.
Right. I was just getting ready to say that.
Yeah.
Jahmyr Gibbs was a potential target there for the Chiefs, and we looked like we needed that, right? What could he have done in this role? And so when I look at the backs, Dude, I think there's a few names there. Yeah, I got to dig into the running backs a little bit over the weekend, Steve. Like, we hadn't done that. And you told me Genty would be my number one, and I'd like Amari Hampton. And I do like those two, and those probably are the consensus number 1 and 2. But I'm telling you right now, a lot of people love Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. I thought his vision was almost as bad as Pacheco half the time.
Yeah.
And so he can run a 4.4, and he has a 1.52 10-yard split. But his vision was lacking. But his other backfield guy, Quinshawn Judkins, had great vision. Boy, I loved his vision. At 6 foot 221, that's a big boy too. He
Right.
could flat out play. So I loved Judkins. I thought he was good. I liked Caleb Johnson out of Iowa at 6'1", 224. That's a big, big back. I just don't see the Chiefs ever utilizing a back that big.
They don't
But
do
if you
that,
go
do
down,
they?
no, and if you go down the board, I really, really loved Devin Neal from Kansas. I absolutely loved
Yeah.
Devin Neal from Kansas. I
I
think
do
that
like
is a
him.
fit right there.
Mike, Peter Ortiz rolling that train in here, baby, with 5 gifted memberships. Let's go, Peter.
Peter.
Peter's a freaking legend, guys. Give Peter some props.
Peter, you
in
see
the
that
chat.
stack of stuff right here? That's got your special surprises in it, and that's going out as soon as we get off the air today.
Let's go. If you get one of those memberships, make sure to thank him in the chat. If you're not a member of this channel, you should be. You're going to get a lot more content coming up here, and you're going to get members-only live streams and things like that. We have some good ideas for our member stuff coming up this season, so it's going to be fun. So go to join.allchiefedup.com if you would like to become a member and you don't get one of those freebies. Mike, we got Desi. He's been a member for 2 months now. Says you guys started the giveaway without me. LOL. Next time we need a start time. Go Chiefs. Yeah, we've got to, like, that's the thing. Like, we're going to try to do more members only stuff, and we're going to also try to have like a good set time for the members only live stream, like in advance. That way you guys know exactly when it is, and you can carve out some time for it if you would like to. And it's not so random.
Right, but you can always go back and watch. You don't have to be there to win.
Yeah, that's
everybody
true.
that won
That's true.
can still claim their prize.
Yeah, as long as you're a member, you have a chance of winning. It don't matter if you're there live or not. Our boy Doug, been a member for 18 months now, says, ACU, love you gentlemen's work on free agency and the draft. Keep up the grind. Appreciate you, Doug. Yeah, we do a lot of work on this stuff every offseason. This one will be no different. It's just going to be more fun, right, Mike? Each year we do a little bit more. So this one's going to be a fun one. We're doing the free agency today, obviously. If you're just rolling in, appreciate you guys being here. Hit the like button for us. Help us out. Tell a friend about us, whatever you got to do. But we are doing our free agency list today, and we'll get right back to that. But we have one more thing we got to address here, Mike. We got freaking Peter Ortiz with the 50 bomb. Let's go, Peter. Peter's a freaking legend. Like
Peter's
none
a
other.
legend.
Peter's the man.
Legendary.
Shout out Peter with that nuke, baby. Y'all put some nukes in the chat. Some legendaries, if you will, for Mr. Peter.
That's how you started
Ortiz.
Monday. That's how you started
Let's
Monday,
go.
Steve. That's how you started Monday.
Peter's pumped, okay?
I
He's
wish everybody
like,
was excited as Peter.
I mean, you have to be. After that Super Bowl performance, Mike, what better way to do it than get back on that nag, boy? You got to get back up there, get back on the horse. You got to go at it. Like, we can't just sit and sulk. Now it's
No.
time to,
We're moving
jump
on.
into
We're
next season.
evaluating talent. We're trying to get the roster better, Steve. I'm excited, man. Do you guys like where we're going so far? Do you think the left tackle, running back are two things we need to address? Let us know in the chat. I think those
I think
are
that's
some
pretty
big
obvious
ones.
that we need to address the left tackle.
Right. I think those are some big ones. Steve, let's jump back into it, man. I think another big move after you look at the left tackle, and again, we talked about it, DJ Humphries is probably your best bet there. You want to get the running back a little bit more veteran, a little bit more dynamic. Maybe look at Aaron Jones. If you can't do that, now you got to get back to Kareem Hunt, Samaje Perine, somebody like that. You're going to have to go to the
Right.
draft.
Absolutely.
Maybe you look at somebody like a Devin Neal or somebody like that mid-rounds. Who knows? But I think once you do that, I think this guy right here is a sign. And I think Brett Veach has already shown interest. I think you got to try to get Marquise Hollywood Brown back.
Let's do it, baby.
We've yet to see what Hollywood Brown can do as a full year with the Chiefs. Again, his market value is going to be somewhere around that $7 to $9 million mark. That's about what we got him for last year. He was injured all season. Rashee Rice looked very good when it started. He got injured. He's now facing the suspension a little bit. I don't know if it's 2 games, 4 games. Who knows what it's going to be. But wouldn't you love to see Hollywood Brown back, solidify that wide receiver room, and have him, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy as your top 3 going forward for a full season?
100%. I think we saw what Hollywood Brown does for the offense just when he came back in December. That's when the offense finally started to get up off their ass a little bit and move the ball. Kind of a good little spark plug, if you will. Hollywood's tough to deal with for defenses, man. He's 4-2 runner. He's savvy. He's smart. He's a good route runner. And he's got the experience, Mike. And I think that's what he has that the other two guys that you mentioned don't just yet. Hollywood Brown's got a lot more experience than Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. And he's kind of a weird mix between the two of those guys when you really think about it. And they kind of use Marquise Hollywood Brown to run some of those routes that Rashee Rice was running before Patrick Mahomes decided to injure him for the entire season. But I don't know if they utilized it enough, to be quite honest, in hindsight. I think they should have hit him a little bit more with those little slant routes and things like that. But if they do bring him back, I would be completely happy with that. I think they got to get him at a good price, though. He is going to garner probably $8 million plus a year. But he did take, I think it was less than $8 million this last year to play with the Chiefs. So if he wants to get a full season in with Patty and Andy and all of that, then I think that he takes something like that. If not, there are other contenders that are looking at Marcus Hollywood Brown, like Buffalo. That's one that they've been pretty vocal about. They would like to get him, and he would be good in their offense. So they might be an actual player in that. So it kind of just depends on Hollywood Brown, man. Does he want to come back and give it another run, get a full season in with the Chiefs, or is he chasing the money, man? And that's pretty much been the name of the game every offseason.
Right. Well, looking at all the free agents, like Darius Slayton's going to be a free agent. We didn't put him on the board. They're expecting Darius Slayton to sign for over $12 to $15
That's
million.
one of them names I'm just tired of hearing about too.
Right.
Like every offseason, it's Darius Slayton.
And I mean, are you
I
giving
don't think
Slayton?
he moves the needle, not for that much money, dude.
Are you giving Slayton 12 to 15 million per? I just
Hell
don't
no.
see it. I don't think it does that much. I don't feel like our wide receiver room is in that dire of a need. Now, I do think that they look at the draft again. I don't think it may not be round one, maybe not even round two, right? But I think as soon as I'll say late round two because that's early three. So I'll say round 2 through round 5, a very sweet spot here in this draft for some wide receivers, Steve. And we've looked into some wide receivers. That's probably going to be the first positional group that we actually rank and give our top 15 for.
Right.
But, Steve, I think they're going to look at a wide receiver possibly. And I think the way Brett Veach builds this roster year in and year out, and then the fact that he doesn't go out and sign top dollar wide receivers, I think you have to invest in guys in the draft every single year. That way you get that
Absolutely.
cheap 4 to 5 year contract.
Yeah, and there are some good ones in this draft, man. And I just mentioned, don't be surprised if Brett Veach does something a little off the cuff in this draft. A lot of people's just expecting to get a left tackle right off the bat in the first round, and that may not be the case. We talked about them maybe taking a look at Hampton if he's there, maybe in the second round as far as the running backs go. But I really honestly think, and they've been talking about this guy slipping down the boards, if Luther Burden is there in the first round for the Chiefs, I think they take him. And I don't
think they go Luther Burden the year after they go
I
Xavier
would not
Worthy.
exactly. It's crazy. It sounds.
And they're about the same exact.
It sounds wild. It sounds crazy. A lot of people probably wouldn't like that move, but I just don't see how they pass up on that kid. I think he's got all the tools that Andy Reid and Brett Veach love in a wide receiver. The yak ability is through the roof. The ceiling is ridiculous. You can't even see it. Luther Burden is an absolute monster.
It is more weapons. Now, here's what I'll say though. There's a few guys I want to talk about. I'm not going to go in super deep. I really liked what Matthew Golden showed in his last few years at Texas, and I loved what he showed at the combine so far. And at 6 foot 195, he's like prototype. He's like right there with a Marquise Hollywood Brown. So if you can't sign back a Hollywood Brown, you need to go that route. I did not mind Matthew Golden. I thought he looks very smooth in what he does. His delivery is very smooth. Just everything about him, his cuts, his breaks, everything looks smooth. But there's a lot of other names, like you said, and if you look through the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, there's some names that really stick out to me, man. And Luther Burden, I just feel like at the end of the first is just kind of, I'm not going to say Luther Burden is like,
got to do it.
I wouldn't do it. And I'm
If
going
he
to tell you why I
falls
wouldn't
that
do
far,
it.
that's wild.
I wouldn't do it. Here's why. I don't think you need Luther Burden,
You don't
and I
need
think
him.
it's too rich. I think that you, in the 2nd or 3rd round, you could grab a guy like Jalen Royals, or you could grab a guy like Jalen Noel from Iowa State.
That's not the
they're
same caliber of player.
They're not, but they're not that far below him either.
Yeah.
They're not that far below him.
I
I
don't
would
see,
say
I see a bigger gap there than you do, I think.
I don't. I think
Okay.
Jalen Noel, I think guys like that, Jalen Royals, I think
That's
those are
fair.
definite
I mean, that's
round two
a
picks. And I think Luther Burden is a top round two pick. I think he's like 30 through 40 on my board right now. That's probably
exactly.
what I
So
put
if
him.
he's sitting there at the end of the first round, do you consider it?
I don't because I just think we have better needs. I think it depends on who you got.
Of course, but at the same time, like, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like one of those value
I'm
things.
not going back to back wide receivers, first round picks. I'm not doing that back to back years with the same exact player, basically. Like two basic slot type guys that you need to play. Like, I just don't know. I got to see Luther Burden win some outside routes more consistently.
I guess that's a fair opinion to have, but I just don't see them passing up on that type of talent if it's there. I just, like I said, I think that he could be utilized. And I mean, do you really? That's the thing. You're talking about Hollywood Brown, and we have him on our watch list. This is somebody that the Chiefs are seriously considering about bringing back. If you can't get him, if Buffalo were to drop a bag at him, or if whatever happens and they can't get that done, wouldn't Luther Burden fit right in that role pretty well?
I mean, possibly, yeah. I mean, he's 5'11", 205. I mean, I'm not going to call 5'11" short, but he's on the smaller side, I would think. 5'11", 205. He holds 205 pretty well, I'll say that. But I'll give you one stat about Luther Burden, see if it changes your mind. Did you know 75% of his career catches at Missouri came inside of the 10 yards?
Of course it did, and that's the thing, Mike. I don't know. Now this is I guess it depends on which way you look at this. We've talked about all last season, and even the year before that. Like, they've got to start hitting these weapons inside the 10-yard line, letting them work, let them get the yak, let them do their thing. That's when Patrick Mahomes is at his best, is when he's getting rid of the ball and giving it to his offensive guys to make plays. And I mean, I think they've got to get to that eventually. And if you have somebody like Luther Burden that you can give the ball to and just let him go crazy with it, that definitely opens up a lot down the field for the other guys.
Look, I like Luther Burden. Like, this conversation is making it out that, like, I just don't like Luther Burden. I just do not know if I'm willing
with
to
you. I
invest
don't understand
in that exact position yet again.
I don't understand why they would do that. Let's just say that. I don't know why they would go back-to-back wide receivers, but I just, like I said, it's one of them value things. And like you said, you do have to keep investing. And so far, the only one that they've hit on two, right? Rashee Rice, they've hit on Xavier Worthy, and that's cool. And they're young. We got them for a few years, but I'm with it too. I think you keep investing in that position. We never go out and sign a high-dollar wide receiver. We didn't even retain the high-dollar wide receiver that we had with Tyreek Hill. We let him go. So I think that it's definitely something that you look at in the draft, and I think if it's there, why not? And then, of course, I see where Doug's talking about Jack Besh in the chat, and that's somebody that I love too, and that's somebody that could be a wide receiver, could be a tight end. So
he's a
I like
piece.
that one.
Jack Besh kind of reminds me a little bit of, and I know people's going to just rage, but he kind of reminds me of the cat that come out of Georgia last year, Brock Bowers. And I'm not saying he plays like Brock
Right,
Bowers.
he's not that
but Brock
crazy and
Bowers was
explosive,
not
right?
just a tight end. Like, when he was like, oh, you can't take a tight end in the top 10. Brock Bowers was just a weapon. And that's what Jack Besh is. Yes, he could be a tight end, he could be a wide receiver, but he's just a weapon. You can put him all over the field, and I think he does well. Steve, another little note. Love Jalen Noel. Mentioned him earlier. He's from KC, man. He went to Park Hill High School. You think that's something they look at there, maybe?
They like
the
the
second,
hometown
third,
guys
fourth round.
sometimes, you know. We got a 5-bomb from Javier Sanchez. He says Steve needs a vacay also. I agree with this one.
He does.
I agree with this one. It's kind of hard to take a vacation, though, when you work 2 jobs and you got 25 children. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. Mike, will you watch the kids for a week? Let me go on vacation.
I don't know.
You come stay at the crib here. You can just stay here. Let them do their thing.
Jeez. If
You
you
got to make sure. You just got to make sure they get to school every morning and all that, and you're good.
God, I don't know about it. That's a job right there.
Well,
Let's
hey,
move on, man.
No, let's not move on. Y'all
Oh,
get in the
no.
chat and let Mike know that he needs to do me a solid here. He took a week and a half vacation. I think it's only fair if he does his brother a solid and helps out a little bit. Let me get a little bit of vacay in.
I didn't sign up for this.
Hey, it's okay. Yeah, you did. You signed up to be an uncle.
Let's move on. Steve, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Nick Bolton. This is somebody we were talking about that we feel like Brett Veach is probably still at the negotiating table with. A lot of people just wrote it off. They think it's over with. They think Nick Bolton's not coming back. And look, it's possible. It's very possible Nick Bolton's not coming back, right? Especially if they work out the long-term deal with Trey Smith. But why do we think Nick Bolton's vital to this team? I mean, it's pretty obvious, right?
Right. I mean, he's the green dot. It's Spags trust him. They love him in this defense. 90% of the time, he's very, very good in this defense. He does struggle in coverage sometimes. He's an undersized guy, but I mean, that's not really affected him. He's a great run defender.
You get it out today.
I know, right? He is the antidote to a Derrick Henry type player. He always has been. I just think that he offers a lot. But now, here's the thing, man. What's he going to garner in this free agency?
Right.
I don't know. Like, the money thing is the big thing there. And I really don't have a good beat on what Nick Bolton's going to get offered by other teams.
I don't either. I've been looking at that and just thinking about it, and I really do not know what Nick Bolton's going to try to get out of this. I don't think Nick Bolton garners the top of the market. I don't think he resets the market by any means. Does he take a hometown discount? Like he played in Mizzou. He's now played all of his professional career and won championships here with the Chiefs. I just don't know. I don't know what the future holds for Nick Bolton. If he wants top of the line money, he's not getting it in Kansas City. I think it's that simple. So I don't know. I really don't. Sound like a broken record, but I have no idea what they're going to do with Nick Bolton. Now, I do think they should keep the lines of communication open with Nick Bolton. I really do. I think Nick Bolton is a guy that you have to keep, and he's got to be a priority if you can get him.
Yeah, and I think that Nick Bolton kind of gives all the vibes of that long-term Chiefs
Steve, a lot of
player.
people are wanting like Dre Greenlaw. That's a name we keep seeing over and over. Do you think the Chiefs could afford Dre Greenlaw? And do you think it's that much of an upgrade?
I don't think that they invest that much at the linebacker position. If they're going to do it with their boy. I think, like Chris Wright's saying, Spot Rack's got Bolton for around $12 million per year.
That's pricey.
It's pretty pricey. But I think if they do put that much into that position, I think they just keep who they have and who's been working there, and who Spags trusts and everything like that. But you have to think, man. Nick Bolton missed with some injuries last year and early this year. Drew Tranquill can play that spot. He can do it. And now Drew didn't have the greatest year this year.
He took a big-time leap backwards this year.
Yeah, and there could be several different reasons for that. I don't know if it's him, just the way the defense was running, whatever it was. But he can do that. We've invested in Leo in the draft already, and I think that he could take on a bigger role. There's lots of different ways they could go. I just don't see them paying a linebacker that much if it's not Nick Bolton.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Nick Bolton's just a guy you got to put on the list. And if you're seeing a trend, it's a lot of Chiefs players here. I think we stay in-house for the majority of it. Brett Veach has not been one to go out and just sign randoms outside of the organization over and over and over again. I think it holds true this time. And so moving on, man, if you've got all these other positions, what's the one thing we got to do? We got to keep beefing up the defensive line. You got to beef up everything. I think Charles Omenihu's right here. I think that's a guy that you got to look back. Now, look, he's getting ready to turn 28. He's coming off of a major knee injury. His production was not great this year, and I know this celebration you're doing right now could last hours. Steve, Charles Omenihu thinks that he is top tier. He probably thinks he's top 10. You're still going. A top 10 defensive end in all of football. What do you think he's going to want as a contract, and do you think the Chiefs match that, or do you think the Chiefs just do something different?
Charles Omenihu is fitting this defense very well. I'll give him props for that. He's an underrated player. He's dealt with some injuries. He dealt with some off-field issues and stuff like that. That's kind of stifled him in the last year or two. But Charles Omenihu, one thing he does not lack is self-confidence. And that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. But he is very full of himself. And he thinks he's worth top dollar. He's already been on X, like we called, that he would be talking about how he deserves this and he deserves that and blah, 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 blah. And that's the thing. I love Charles Omenihu in this defense. I think he's a good player. But I don't think he's that caliber of player that he thinks he is. And that's not me saying he can't be. So, Charles, if you're watching, don't get your panties in a wad. I'm not saying you suck. But I just think that we've yet to be able to see that. Now, if we get a full season of Charles Omenihu and him go off the chain, then I'll be like, yes, you were right. You were right. Now you can pay somebody like that. But just from what we've been able to have from him, the sample size, you can't do it. There's other options out there, and I think that they're kind of looking at him being around the $11 million a year mark. I don't know if that's what you want to invest in Charles Omenihu, Mike. What do you think?
It's pushing it. It's pushing it. Look, we come up with another name. If you lose Omenihu, where could you maybe go? And I'm not for sure what this guy would want either in comparison to Omenihu. I don't know if he'd want more, less, how it would go. But our other backup option was Deo Odingbo. Odeyingbo, I think is how you pronounce it. 6'6", 286. He's pretty similar. 6'5", 280, 6'6", 286. So he's pretty similar. He's younger. He's only 25. He played with the Colts. This is what he did last year. He was decently productive. 66 overall grade, 66 pass rush grade. His run defense, not very good at a 56, 57. But the point is you need the guy to get after the passer. That's what we're paying him for. So solo tackles, he had 18. He had 4 sacks. He had 10 assists. He didn't have a forced fumble. If you look back over his career, Steve, pretty decent. Pretty spot on over his 4 years in Indy. He was a second-round pick, I'm pretty sure. He's had 60 hurries, 25 hits, 23 sacks over 4 years. Last year, his sack total dipped a little bit back to his lowest since he was a rookie. But last year, 2023, he had 12 sacks, and then the year before that, he had 6. I'm not for sure if he had to deal with any injuries or anything during that time, but that one season in 2023 where he had 12 sacks, 7 hits, and 10 hurries, that is something right there that leads you to believe that the potential is there. Now it's just what happens. And he's a guy that's big enough, Steve, at 286, he sets the edge. I think if Omenihu does not want to sign back here and you can't get it, this is a guy I would look at to maybe replace. And I mean, their last name's supposed to start with an O. I don't know. There's your similarity.
Okay, so I love Odeyingbo. He's just a big ball of energy in that pass rush. He's going to get after the quarterback. You got to love the kid. He's young. He's big, like you said. He kind of fits that Spags mold. Yeah. He has 34 combined sacks and QB hits over the last 2 years as a part-time player. So he wasn't even on the field all the time and had that type of production. If you give that kid a feature role in that defense and you let him start on the edge and really put in the time there, I think the sky's the limit for Deo Odeyingbo. But he's not going to be very cheap, Mike. I think they're projecting him on Spirac to be around $16 million per year. So he could be too rich for the Chiefs' blood. But I think, if that's the type of player you want and you really want to focus on that pass rush, I think that's the kind of guy that you can get in here that could boost our pass rush and maybe hit on a kid that's getting ready to hit.
Do you remember
his stride in the league?
Who they said was going to garner $16 million for free agency last year as a defensive end? Mike Dana, and he didn't even get close. We ended up getting Mike Dana back on a 3-year deal for nowhere near that.
That's wild to even kind of put them in the same category because I think Odeyingbo is on a different level.
I think he's got a little more explosiveness to him. But here's the thing. If he tests free agency, he don't get the number, maybe you can get him in here on a cheap 1 year. That's all I'm asking for during this right here. These are just stopgaps. I do think the Chiefs go to the draft and maybe look at a defensive end. Again, I think the draft is a very telling place. You've seen a lot of guys. Mykel Williams out of Georgia, he was mocked to us already as a defensive end.
You just like him because of the name.
At the end of the first, yeah.
You think his name's nice.
Pretty similar name, But they've already looked at Princely, Uman Milan from Ole Miss. They've already had an interview with him. So I do think that they are looking for somebody like that in the draft. And there's a lot of names. You had James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. People are saying he could drop to the end of the first. That dude's a freak. I think he run like a 4.4. Like, what did he run? It was insane.
Well, I have a question for you, since you like to do it to me. But if they were to both fall into that $11 million per year category, who you take? You take a Charles Omenihu back, or are you going to go take a stab at a younger guy like Odeyingbo?
Right. You got two thought processes here. One, Omenihu is older. He's coming off a major knee injury. And we haven't really seen character issues, but he did get suspended. He was suspended for 4. Odeyingbo is younger. He's a little untapped. He's a little raw. You may get more on the upside from Odeyingbo, but he doesn't know the system as well as Omenihu now that's been here for 2 years. So it's just a coin toss. I think you take Omenihu over Odeyingbo if the money is similar. If Odeyingbo wants $5 million more per year, you have to go to Omenihu. If Omenihu's saying, "Look, I'm not signing for anything less than 12 or 13," and Odi Ingbo's like, "Well, I'll play for 14," I almost take him. So I think it's just all revolves around the money, and I think it does with Brett Veach. I think Brett Veach literally makes a lot of decisions like we all do. When your kids go to the store and they want this and want this and want this, you're like, okay, I'll buy you something just to get them to shut up. But you don't always take the most expensive one. You just take something and you put it in the cart and go home.
Yeah, you got to get that great value brand every once in a while.
You got to go get the off-brand Pop-Tarts. Tastes like cardboard too.
Hey. Hey, before we keep going, just want to say I appreciate you all being here this morning. Do us a favor, hit that like button for us and all that good stuff. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, what the hell are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. We got a lot of free agency stuff coming up, a lot of draft stuff coming up. It's going to be a fun off season. It's going to be a fun season. So right along with All Chiefed Up. Mike, let's get back to the chat. God Plar with the 2 bomb says some talks of Diggs coming to KC. I've seen a lot of that, but usually anytime there's a high profile free agent, everyone has them going to the Chiefs every freaking time. They're always in the conversation. I don't like Diggs in Kansas City. I have my reasons, but I mean, as a player, sure. But with the price tag and the attitude, I'd pass. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I don't think that's a thing. I think the price is too much. I just don't see it.
When they have cheaper options that are just as, I'm not saying that Hollywood Brown is a Stephon Diggs type player or that level.
No, but I think Brett Veach prioritizes Hollywood Brown a lot higher than Stephon Diggs.
I think so. I do. So I wouldn't look too much into that, Godplar. It's probably just that off-season talk, like it's always there. Our boy Sam Lofton with the 2 bomb says, what about Justin Reed? Would love to be able to get Justin Reed back on this team. It's going to be difficult. He is a bit pricier for safety, and they have invested in safety, obviously, with Brian Cooks and Jaden Hicks. So I don't know, especially with Jamari Connor kind of proving that he's better as a safety and he's good when he's out there. I don't know if they're able to pay someone like Justin Reed, honestly, or if that is the smart move. But love Justin Reed. Love what he offers the team. I thought he played excellent this last season, especially in the playoffs. He's a good leader back there in the secondary. Got the experience. He's smart. He'll bring the hits. He'll bring the wood, lay the wood on these people, baby. And I like that about him. But it's a money thing. It's a money thing. What do you think, Mike? You think it's possible that we could get Justin Reed back?
Yeah, we didn't put Justin Reed on our top 5 or 6 because I feel like the safety position, they invested in it last year with Hicks. But I will say this. I would sign back Justin Reed if the money's right. And I think Brett Veach would too. He does a lot for the team. I like Justin Reed. I always have. A lot of people do not like Justin Reed. He's a polarizing kind of player. A lot of people said they preferred the Honey Badgers of the world to the Justin Reed. So it just depends. We didn't put him on our top 5 or 6 because, honestly, the whole Jaden, I just didn't feel like. Honestly, do you feel like, Steve, that Justin Reed's top priority with Brett Veach? Like in the position and everything? I don't feel like he's right there at the top 3 or 4 top priorities.
I think it's the position.
I think if you look at our team, we can all agree that left tackle needs to be addressed.
There's bigger fish to fry than safety.
Yeah.
So I just think that's how it is. Justin Reed came in at a good time, obviously, when we moved on from Tyrann Mathieu. So I think that kind of opened the door for him there. Now it's not really that type of situation. We got some young guys that can get into that role, and I just think it's a different time here in Kansas City. So
I mean, they're right now, this second, Spot Rack has him valued at $17 million per season.
He's a damn good player, and somebody's going to benefit from him. But I don't know if we'll be able to pay him.
Afford that.
Yeah, not real sure about it. Hannah with the 5 bomb says Bolton, $9 million plus incentives. Spags values intelligence in his players, and everyone in defense says Bolton is the smartest. Omenihu wants top dollar, but KC can draft. I appreciate both of those sentiments, Hannah. I do think that Bolton is a player that's very valued in the Chiefs organization, maybe more so in-house than outside to other teams, but that's yet to be seen. Like we said, we don't have a really good beat on what teams will want to pay Nick Bolton or how they're viewing him. But also with Charles O'Menihue, he, it says 11 million. Charles O'Menihue probably thinks he's worth 16 million. Who knows? Who knows who? I don't even know who his agent is. I don't know what they're going to try to negotiate. I don't know what he's looking to get. I don't even know if Charles O'Menihue wants to be in Kansas City. I don't see a lot of stuff from him on social media where he's just talking about loving it here or anything. Most of the time when I see things about Charles O'Menihue, it's him saying basically he's disrespected and he deserves more. And he needs more credit. He needs more money. He needs this. He needs that. He's that good.
He's a Mimi guy, right?
Yes, he definitely is. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And I'm not downing the guy. I think he's a great player, and I don't know him personally. He's probably a fine man. But that's the vibe that he puts off on social media. So I think he could be hard to negotiate with. So that's just my opinion on that.
So his last tweet was on February 28th, 5 days ago, Charles O'Menihue, and he said, I worked too hard for this. No matter what obstacles I had in front of me, I had always made an impact, always. Ain't none changed about me as a player. Good thing I'll have a full season to show y'all done gave me something else that's gonna light this fire even more. So that was tough to read. But out of it, it sounds like to me, maybe he's not getting the offer he thinks he should get in Kansas City.
Dude, I'm telling you, that's the vibe he gives off. You could go back and read his previous 5 tweets, and he's going to give you that vibe I just described.
Yeah.
That's just the type of guy he is. So,
But that's also why we put Bolton above O'Menihue, is we think Bolton is more of a higher priority.
And Bolton is probably more devoted to Kansas City. I think he feels more of a connection here. I think Bolton definitely has all the traits and qualities of one of those lifers, or at least like a Derek Johnson type guy that'll be here for a very, very long time. I get all that from Nick Bolton, and I do think he would take what they would consider a sweetheart deal to stay here. I don't think it would be like a big one, but I do think if it's like a matter of money that's not significant, I think Nick Bolton would stay in Kansas City as opposed to go somewhere else. That's just what I think. And I hear that train a rolling,
What's happening?
rolling round the bend. Peter Ortiz is coming with the gifted memberships. Let's go, baby.
Let's go.
5 gifted from Peter. Let's do it.
Peter,
Peter's just
baby.
tearing it up today.
Peter's tearing up Monday.
Peter doing the Lord's work. Appreciate all you guys that are supporting the channel monetarily through super chats and gifted memberships and things like that. Those are going to come in handy for All Chiefed Up this off season. We officially don't have any sponsors at the moment. It might say BetUS up at the top, but they're done. I just haven't changed the background yet. So everything that we're getting right now, everything that's supporting this channel, keeping this thing going and going is you guys, and we appreciate you. And you don't just have to do monetary stuff. You can just watch the videos, like the videos, share the videos, live streams, whatever we put out. If you consume it, you hit the like button and you share it with a friend, then you're doing the Lord's work, and we appreciate that. Peter, shout out though, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, brother.
And Mike's got you some stuff coming. Let's go. Hannah with another 2 bombs. His Charles agent is David Mulugeta. Need I say more? Well, so Mike, he's not exactly Drew Rosenhaus, but he definitely has that mentality. So yeah, and Charles is that type of guy. So I mean, he could be hard to deal with. So I think I also think that Charles O'Menihue is a very prideful guy in the sense that if he's not getting what he wants from another team, then maybe he does just stick with the Chiefs. So I'm not for sure. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. It's an interesting one to follow. And I do think that if Odeyingbo is not paid top dollar by somebody really looking for a young budding pass rusher that thinks he's about to hit his stride in this league, that could be somebody they look at too, because I really like what he has to offer, man.
Right. His agent represents Jalen Ramsey, Deshaun Watson.
Right.
I mean, come on.
A whacker.
I mean, he's used to getting some big contracts for some undeserving players, so maybe Charles O'Menyhue's the next in line. Who knows?
Who do you think forced PP touches more? Do you think it was Deshaun Watson or Justin Tucker? If you had to guess.
I don't know, man. Tucker looks like a PP forcer.
He does.
An enforcer.
I tell you, bro. Hey.
It's just hearsay.
Steve wants to know what's up with the Lakers hat. So, am I a Lakers fan? Not exactly. I'm not an NBA fan much. I like to watch it passively. I don't have a team, but I have a player, and his name's Luka Doncic, and that's where he's at now. So, I'll support it. I'll support it. Him and LeBron probably gonna win that thing this year. What do you think, Michael?
I don't know, man. I
Luka's
stopped watching the NBA. I was
Luka's
NBA.
Luka's one of those guys that makes me want to watch. Like that's the thing. I don't watch the NBA very much, but if Luka's on TV, I'm gonna watch because Luka's that guy.
I will say, man, growing up, who did I love, man? I was a Kobe Bryant guy. I was an LA Laker guy. And yeah, when Kobe retired, I didn't
Well,
watch anymore,
when you
man.
don't have a team in a sport, but you are into the sport somewhat, I think it's you kind of follow players more than you do teams. You know.
Yeah. Oh well,
Yeah.
let's wrap this up, man. Let's recap this really quick. So we said our highest priority is DJ Humphries, man.
Yeah,
I
I
just
think so.
that's right there. You got to get that left tackle, and I think he's going to do it for you better than most. Definitely trust him more than a rookie. You're not going to get a top 10 pick. You're not getting a top 15 pick. So it's just something I think DJ Humphries has been here. Let's give him a shot. Aaron Jones, we really like that. If you want to go out and you want to get the veteran, we think Aaron Jones really adds that Jerick McKinnon-esque role back to the room. He gives you a guy that's a little more fresh than Kareem Hunt. He's a little guy with a little more pop than Kareem Hunt, but that's not to say we don't want Kareem Hunt back as well. Kareem Hunt would be another guy that you start looking at if you can't get Aaron Jones, or maybe if you even get Aaron Jones, maybe Kareem Hunt's a guy. If you got a double dip, we think that Perine is probably a pretty good option too. Perine was coming on at the end of the year. He had that Jerick McKinnon flash to him. He's not as shifty and things like that as McKinnon was or different things, but
Things
I did
like
feel
that.
like he was starting to develop a chemistry with Mahomes, right?
Yeah, I think so. I thought he was starting to kind of slide into that role pretty well. Wasn't utilized as much as I'd like to have seen him, but I do think if he gets a chance to be back here, I do think they start using him a little bit more because I think he has a lot to offer.
Right. So once that running back room's taken care of, I think they try to get back Hollywood Brown. Me and Steve thought this was the guy that you should target. We actually think that you should probably target Marquise Brown over D-Hop. Now, look, if Marquise goes out and signs a big money contract with somebody and D-Hop wants to come back for a year on good money, I probably take D-Hop as well. He's not on the list. But, you look here, and I think you look in-house here for that. I'm not a big fan of going out and signing like a DeMarcus Robinson again. I'm just
No.
not. I
I don't
don't
think
like
it's
that
necessary.
option.
I think you look at Hollywood Brown. Maybe if D Hop were to want to be back and you can get him for cheaper than what he was getting paid, I think that's something you could look at just because I think he's still a good one-on-one option. I think they could utilize him a lot more than they did. I think he's still got a year or two left in his career, and I also think he's a great mentor to these young guys. And then you look at the draft as well, because as many times as we missed in the draft on wide receivers the last couple of years, we've been hitting. So strike while the iron's hot.
Right. Then if you look at defense, Bolton, again, we don't know what he's going to garner on the open market, but I think the Chiefs and Spags and everybody want to continue to talk to Nick Bolton. I think that he's a high priority. And then you look at the defensive end. Can you get Omenihu back for a good price? If not, what's a good option outside of him? Deo Odiingbo, we really like 6'6", 286. He's got a lot of production. He's just 4
Beast.
years into his career. The kid's got some flash.
Getting ready
And
to pop, though.
he can set the edge. I mean, he's a Spags type defensive end. So we like those options. And then if you go outside of that, we really like Justin Reed. He didn't make the list, but we like Justin Reed. I just don't know if they're going to be able to pay that money, especially if he's offered $17 million per, which is what they're saying.
Right.
And of course, you've got plenty of other options down the board, but we felt that a lot of it's going to come from in-house, Steve. That was the theme of the day, is that Brett Veach, I believe, is going to continue to sign in-house. And I don't think there's going to be that many huge splashes in free agency this year. I just don't see it.
Probably not. You have your usual suspects in free agency. There's a lot of reports saying the Chiefs are in on DK Metcalf. If they were to go that route, that could blow up the Hollywood thing and everything else. So we have no idea, but that's reported every year. Also, I don't know if Seattle's going to let him go. They're probably going to try to sign him long term. So who really knows how that could go? Things could go a lot of different ways. You all get in the chat. Let us know what you think about our list. Also, are there any obvious ones that you think we missed that the Chiefs are definitely going to be targeting in free agency? If you think there's somebody we missed, let us know in the chat. I'd love to see it. We got Godplar with the 5 bombs. Says Bolton has the shortcomings, but he's been called the quarterback of the defense. Absolutely want to re-sign him. He's definitely worth $9 million a year. $9 million a year. You taking Nick Bolton, Mike? I would. I think that he's definitely worth $9 million a year.
Yeah, I think that's where I start negotiations. At that 9 million, he's probably going to want to push it up to around 11 or 12. And I mean, that's where I probably draw the line somewhere. So you got to find the sweet spot. He may sign for cheaper than we think just because he wants to stay here. Nick Bolton does not seem like a money hungry kind of guy. He seems like the polar opposite of a Charles Omenihu.
Yeah, exactly. He's very humble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
quiet, humble.
It's very
keeps
possible
his head down, does his job.
He may just want to sign here, and he don't have to have top dollar.
Absolutely. We'll see how it goes, though. I'm excited to see how that pans out. And then we got Hannah with the 2 bomb. Says, if KC trades for Pickens, I'm jumping off the cliff. I haven't seen any smoke about that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's not something being talked about. I don't think that's something that they're looking to do, but you never know. You never know with Brett Veach, man. He can really surprise you in free agency. So sometimes you think that his head is in one place and it's completely the opposite. So
digging into the wide receivers, man, I found a few guys that kind of remind me of George Pickens. I think there might be a George Pickens in this draft.
You think
without the weird off the field issues?
To that caliber, like actually, you think?
There's very close. There's some close ones. I think so.
Who do you got? Who do you got as the George Pickens? I would like to know.
I mean, off the top of my head, how big is George Pickens exactly?
About 6'3", I think. Let me look it up.
About 6'3", 210? Or is he a little bit smaller than that?
He might be smaller. He might be like 6'1". I don't know. Let me look. He's 6'3". I was right.
210?
I don't know his weight.
I need to know his weight. I need to know his weight to put it on.
200.
So he's a smaller, a little lankier dude. So anyway, look.
Catches everything.
So there was a guy that kind of reminded me of him a little bit. Alec Ailmanor from Stanford. Now, he's not perfect George Pickens, but he high points the ball. He goes and gets it. The dude is fast. Now, he had a little bit of an injury. But I think that he's a guy that you could maybe get late in the first round that if you wanted to go that route. But again, do the Chiefs really utilize 6'2", 200-pound wide receivers? No. But if you go down the board just a little bit, there was a few other ones. A very, very close, in my opinion, were guys like Torrey Horton, a little skinnier, but he's got the vibe. And then also Brew McCoy out of Tennessee, 6'2", 215. He's got a vibe. There's just a couple vibes. I want to keep watching. I actually thought Arian Smith out of Georgia looked very, very fast and very fluid in some of his tape, but he also had a lot of drops and different things. That's just what's going to happen. He's 6 foot 179, 180, so he's a little smaller too. He looked a lot bigger on film than what he weighed in as. So I don't know what happened to this cat. Maybe he come in and lost some weight. Maybe he just feel a little self-conscious.
My thing is I don't think Brett Veach really cares about a bigger receiver unless they're freaky fast. And I think DK Metcalf's kind of the only one that really falls into a category that's an outlier for me that Brett Veach would actually like to have as a bigger body receiver. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that he has nightmares about taking McCole Hardman over him in the draft, which is absolutely absurd. I mean, and I would say in hindsight, hindsight's 2020, but no, it was 2020 then. Like I was literally ready to smash my television. So I think that's like a big kind of like smear on Brett Veach's legacy of drafting because everybody talks about how good he is at drafting. That was a terrible idea. Just awful. A god-awful miss. And I think it haunts him. But so I think that's the only reason why DK falls into that category. And the fact that he's a 4'3" guy. When it really comes to these bigger guys like Pickens, they could have took him. They could have took him twice. And they just didn't. So I don't see why they'd go trade for him now.
Mizzou fans are going to know Theo Weiss Jr. That kid, 32 and 1/8 inch arms. That's elite. He come in at 6'3", 200 pounds. He's got vibes. Now, is he as good as George Pickens? Probably not. But he's got the body type. So it's just one of those things. Who's big enough to have the body type and can do certain things? You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. And I think this wide receiver class is kind of intriguing. I don't know if it's as good as years past, but there's some talent there. You got to find it.
Yeah, for sure, man. for sure. I think there's a lot out there in this draft. I don't think this draft is as deep necessarily in certain positions, but I do think defensive line, and I do think it's a pretty decent wide receiver class. It's not as crazy as last year, but I think there are some guys there. It's going to be interesting to see where Brett Veach's head's at when it comes to this draft, because sometimes you think you know what he's focused on, and then you're dead wrong. So we'll just wait to see. And just one more time, just because we have the weekly Eagles fan in the chat who thinks the Chiefs are done and the Eagles are the greatest team of all time. If they win back-to-back next year, then you can come back and you can talk to the adults. And then if they go to a third Super Bowl in a row, you can come back and you can sit at the adults' table. But until then, go eat your chicken nuggets and your macaroni and cheese and leave us the hell alone. Not in the same league, brother. Not yet.
Eagles fans have really shown one thing.
That
franchise has not won very much.
They are the worst fan base in the history of the world. They don't know how to win, that's for sure. Good God Almighty. Most annoying people on the planet.
They've never done it. This
They
was
have
the biggest win in
outdone
franchise history, maybe.
They have outdone Houday Nation, okay? If you have outdone that and you are more annoying than the Bengals fans, then that's probably a bigger accomplishment than winning the freaking Super Bowl, in my opinion. That's tough to do.
Faithful with a question here. Is the Chiefs that don't utilize big receivers, or is it Mahomes? I mean, they're one and the same.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, they're one and the same. I just don't think Andy Reid's offense, that West Coast style, I just don't think it's very conducive to big wide receivers. They've tried it over and over. They tried Josh Gordon. He couldn't do nothing. They tried Kelvin Benjamin back in the day. They couldn't do nothing there. They've brought in Justin Ross. He can't seem to get a footing. They've drafted big wide receivers.
Don't work
I think
out.
Jehu Chesson was a bigger wide receiver, and he ended up stinking. You know, they just don't. Chris Conley, I think he was a bigger wide receiver, and they didn't. I mean, I don't think Chris Conley was that big, but he was a bigger body. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see it. So that's a good question. It could just be Mahomes too. Mahomes doesn't throw a lot of.
Dude, I tell you what,
doesn't throw a lot of 50-50 balls up.
The
that's
fact
for
that
sure.
he did not utilize DeAndre Hopkins the way that I think he should have.
That's kind of telling too.
It could be Mahomes, you know. But at the same time, I think they had him running a lot of decoy routes. So I'm not for sure. I think it's a mixture of the two. I do. It's an interesting one, and I think that's always kind of sketchy when you start talking about getting a bigger wide receiver on this team, because you don't really know how that's going to go. We've not seen one come in and actually succeed yet. So who switches that up? Could it be a trade for DK Metcalf? Could it be them drafting a guy? I don't know. Or maybe it'll never happen. Maybe they'll always
draft a guy named Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State, and maybe he turns it around. I don't know. I really like him.
Maybe Luther Burden falls and they stick with the slot guys, you know.
I'm tired of it.
Mike, would you really be that mad if they took Luther Burden at the end of the first round?
Would
If he's sitting
mad?
there,
I wouldn't be mad about it.
I think
just
the
don't,
talent is crazy, though.
I just don't see the point.
I don't either, but I mean, if the talent's there for the taking, like, can you pass on it? Do you think there's guys in the second round that would still be there that are better value than Luther Burden if he's sitting there at the end of the first round? I mean, honestly.
I mean, it really depends. Like, look, I'm going to tell you right now, Travis Hunter's going in the first round. That's a lock.
Dude, the more I watch his tape, the more I like Travis Hunter, honestly.
Ted McMillan and Emeka Ogbuka, those two are fighting right now for number 2. So I would say they both go in the first round. Now, look, I've watched and read a lot of stuff, and Ted McMillan is not as high on some of these guys' draft boards as they are on some of these evaluators outside of this. I was reading something the other day, and somebody had questioned a bunch of GMs, and a lot of GMs were saying that Ted McMillan's his sweet spot in the draft was around pick 20 to 25. So if Ted McMillan is a 20 to 25, I'm trying to tell you right now, Luther Burden will not be drafted in the first round. There's too big of a gap there. So that's why I keep saying Luther Burden reminds me of a second-round pick, and it's because the people are dictating that Ted McMillan, with 6'5", 210, with 10-inch hands, is a number 20 to 25 pick. Now, are they blowing smoke? Very good possibility. But still, if you take them at face value, that drops Luther Burden out of the first round. I'm sorry, but it does. Because I think you got Matthew Golden pressing him right now. I think you got Alec Ailmanor that I just talked about pressing him right now. And honestly, I mean, Emeka Ogbuka is going to take him over as the number 3.
Do you think this is, and I do not mean any shade to Luther Burden. So don't take this like 100% serious. But do you think that Luther Burden kind of gives you Kadarius Toney vibes, and the fact that he was just a monster with all kinds of athletic ability, and maybe it just don't pan out when he gets to the league? Do you think that's a possibility? Is that what's going on in your head?
Luther Burden, I don't think he's going to pan out. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Do you think he's not going to be as productive as, I guess, as a lot of people are thinking? Because I mean, the tools are there. You can't argue that.
The tools are there, but it's exactly what I told you the other day. Upon evaluating Luther Burden, I watched some of his film from 2023, and it was very good, very dynamic, very everything. This year, not so much. Looked like he was bored as hell in that offense.
Yeah.
So why do I want a guy? I mean, if you're really just bored in the offense, I don't want a guy, because if you want to see a boring offense, go watch the Chiefs offense for about 8 weeks. Like, he's going to fall asleep in this offense. And if he's not going to give me every bit of everything he's got week in and week out, then that's going to be a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And the Chiefs draft a lot off of character sometimes, but they are also known to take a guy or two that they think they can, turn
and again,
around, so.
I told you the thing about 75% of his career catches were inside the 10. That's fine and dandy. But when he doesn't get that, he's very inconsistent. Like, if you watch if the ball does not go to Luther Burden, he just will cut his route off. He's very like,
no,
hey, the
that
ball's not
was
coming
also,
to me. I'll cut my route off.
That was also something that was talked about with Xavier Worthy last year too, though. And you see that wasn't really a thing.
I mean, that's also true. It's true. The only other thing that kind of bothered me with Luther Burden is that when there was a lot of traffic, he could drop. Now, look, I think drops are subjective. I really do. I think drops are subjective. I think a guy could drop 3 balls in one game, and then I think he could go out and not drop 3 balls for an entire season. Just depends. So it's subjective.
You think it's just that his name's really cool? You think that's what it is? Yeah, I mean, it's a cool name. It is. You think that's what it is?
Luther Burden cool? 3.
Luther Burden the third, baby. That sounds like somebody you could be talking about for a long time. Ain't that right, Jay Freese?
Sounds like a villain from like a Batman movie, right? He's like, Luther Burden's out again, trying to destroy Gotham.
Can't wait to get to the draft stuff. Going to dig in some more today. Got a little free time. Get to work on that a little bit. So that's the next thing coming, guys. We gave you our free agent list today. Keep that in mind as the Chiefs go into free agency, and we'll see how that goes. There's always going to be an outlier. I would almost bet they are going to get somebody in free agency that we're not even thinking about. But we will see.
Know who.
We will see.
I wouldn't know who, Steve. We looked through it with a fine-tooth comb.
I don't know.
And
so
just nobody fits the profile too much this year.
So if you didn't get to watch it, you can go back. You can replay this. See who we had on our list for targets for the Chiefs and free agency. The next thing on the menu, Michael, is wide receivers in the NFL draft. So we'll be having a video coming out soon with our top receivers in this draft class.
Excited. I'm excited to talk draft.
Horned
Been
up.
bottling it up for so long, Steve.
A little
it's
horny,
time.
huh? A little horned up.
The horn is coming.
You like it?
You love it.
You want some more of it?
No.
Hey, I think it's going to be good, man. So, stick around. Be on the lookout for that video dropping soon. And we'll be back, guys. Thanks, everybody that donated with Super Chats and gifting out memberships and stuff. You guys are freaking amazing. Thanks so much. If you haven't hit that like button yet, be sure to do that on your way out. If you're watching on Facebook or X, you can share that out with your friends, family, followers, if you're cool like that. Whatever you need to do, help get the word out about All Chiefed Up. We appreciate you guys, and we'll be back. Go Chiefs, baby. Go Chiefs. Where is that outro button? Right there.
There goes a sight from my soul.